Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to Reacteria. Today, we're back with another horrible video from our old friends, John and Jane, who are here to tell us everything they don't know about vestigial structures. This is a very early episode in their series, and it's also really short, so I've kind of been putting off addressing it for a long time, but with a thumbnail like this, I just couldn't resist clicking on it any longer. Before I begin, however, I'd like to thank my patrons on Patreon, as well as my channel members here on YouTube. You are all the reason why this channel has grown as much as it has, and why it will continue to grow into the future. And if you can't become a channel member or a patron right now, that's totally okay. Just please make sure that you're subscribed and that you click that like button. It's difficult to succinctly explain just how important those things are for me as a content creator, but in summary, the buttons are free and they help a whole heck of a lot, so please click them. Oh, and one more quick thing, there's still time to sign up for my trips to Borneo and Germany this year, so if you want to come with me to learn about orangutans and sun bears and pygmy elephants and proboscis monkeys, or if you just want to relax and sip some spice cider with me, then use the link down below to get your tickets right now. And without further ado, let's grump our way through another John and Jane video.
Is it just me, or is it kind of creepy that evolutionists say we're made up of spare parts?
Jane, you believe that you're made from the spare rib of a dirt man. You don't want to go there.
Working on your car?
I can't hear you.
So we're not even a minute in, and I already have so many questions. Why are you doing this inside? Is the void that you two live in inside? We know from that one episode that the white background around you is a screen of some kind. Is it like the construct from the Matrix, where it's just an infinite white realm of anything that you want it to be? Or is it more like where Squidward went with the time machine to be alone?
I may finally have found a place where I can be all.
Evolution. 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 Evolution.
Evolution.
Evolution. Evolution. Evolution. Evolution. Evolution.
I gotta get out of here.
Can you shut it off?
I can't hear you because the car's on.
46 seconds in, this introduction is so weird and so forced. Why did John walk over to you? Why were you just standing there? Where is there?
What's in the box?
Oh, you know, my car's leftover parts.
I always have a few of them left over when I'm done working on it.
Parts you don't need?
Pretty sure.
Are you sure you don't need these? Or you know this?
How old is this car? That steering wheel looks like it came from an Egyptian chariot. Also, how often are you working on this car for it to still sound like that? Also, how are you this filthy? Were you working on the car or making love to it?
Morning, baby. Handsome man.
Also, why do you have this car to begin with? I can't tell whether you're 14 or 45, John. You look like you just walked off of a high school production of Grease where you played the Grease. We are 1 minute into this video and I am beside myself with confusion.
Not really, but I started the engine and it runs without this junk.
You know, all this reminds me about what our textbook says about vestigial structures. Can you help me grab it out of my backpack? How do you not know what's in your car?
How are you this filthy now too? You just barely touched one side of your mandible and your whole face is disgusting. This is the strangest episode we've ever seen.
Something wrong?
No, but why don't you look it up for us?
Oh, yeah, right. Okay. Where's it? Oh, there it is right there. Vestigial structures are inherited from ancestors, but have lost much or all of their original function due to different selection pressures acting on the descendant.
Why are you talking like that? What happened when the camera panned away for you to begin speaking the way that you just did? Do you need a bathroom break? What is going on in this episode?
So they're saying that animals and people have leftovers in their bodies that once served a function in our evolutionary ancestors? Hey, just like the parts for my car.
Finally, 2 minutes in, we start talking about science. People are animals, John. Also, the parts of your car are not vestigial because your car did not evolve. Also, please put the steering wheel back. Also, please take a shower. Although you should probably leave the great white abyss first. If that is indeed possible, I still don't know where you are.
Exactly. The example they give here is the dolphin's hip bones.
They're saying its ancestor used to walk on land, But once the dolphin evolved to live in water, it has useless leftover hip bones.
What's funny is scientists recently discovered that marine animals, like whales, need these bones during mating season. The study was published in a 2014 article in the science journal Evolution.
Right, because as you just read in your textbook, vestigial structures aren't necessarily completely useless. They've just lost much of their original function. So the pelvis, which anchors lots of muscles, like those in the legs and the genitalia, can lose the function for the legs and not necessarily change the function for the genitalia, because that's just one of the many things that pelvises can do.
Wait. The name of the journal is Evolution.
How is that the part that you got caught up on?
Yep.
The one that claims they've discovered a purpose for these bones, which goes against the whole idea that these bones are mere evolutionary leftovers.
There's the definition of irony, isn't it?
It is not, Jane. It is not the definition of irony. Hey, real question, why do you two just say things?
So, in the textbook, they call them useless, but in reality, these bones help the dolphin reproduce and survive.
Exactly. And they say the same thing about humans.
That we have dolphin hips?
Not exactly, but close. They point out that our coccyx, the tailbone, is left over from when we had tails.
They think we used to have tails?
Yeah, but it's just the end of our backbone. I mean, it has to end somewhere, right?
True.
Right, and it just so happens to end in the exact same fashion as it does in every other mammal, all of which, by the way, are chordates, and one of the defining characteristics of chordates is that they all have a post-anal tail at some point in their development, including you. You see, it's not just the anatomy, it's also the development of that anatomy, which is why evolution and development go hand in hand in a field called Evo-Devo. And it's also why you can't just say, I know it looks like a tailbone, but it isn't because it just isn't, because that's not how thinking works. And while we're talking about vestigial structures and development, you actually could have put some of this together yourself. Because in your textbook, right underneath the paragraph on vestigial structures that you were just reading from, there's another section about embryology. And on the very next page, there's a whole little section about genetics and molecular biology, also as evidence for evolution, although you never talk about the vestigial things there because they're a lot harder to dismiss. In fact, chapter 16.4 of your textbook, which is where you pulled that paragraph about vestigial structures, is all about evidence for evolution, including everything that Darwin didn't know and how much we've learned in the almost 200 years since his time, which is something that you continuously struggle with throughout the course of this series. How could I possibly know all that, you ask? Because I bought the freaking textbook. Here's the section about vestigial structures that you're reading right now. Here's the part on genetics and molecular biology that you should be reading. Here's the whale evolution diagram that you used for both this and your terrible whale evolution video. And here is chapter 16.4, Evidence for Evolution, the one part of your biology textbook that you've been refusing to read for 9 videos now. It's okay, little textbook. No one's gonna hurt you anymore.
It's also the anchor for a bunch of muscles, right?
Yes, as all tails are. They aren't just loose skin flopping off a monkey's butt. They have and are muscle attachments.
Yes, tiny muscles, tendons, and ligaments connect to it, and it supports something called the pelvic diaphragm. This whole system holds a bunch of muscles and organs in place, like the bladder.
I need you two to understand that other animals also have pelvic floor muscles. It's not like there's some rhesus monkey out there with its bladder just bouncing around its body because its tail extends out so it doesn't have any muscles to anchor its organs. We are talking about a difference in shape here, not a difference in existence.
So, what other things did they say are leftovers?
The tonsils.
Of course. Lots of people had their tonsils removed. Great way to get ice cream for dinner.
Do you seriously let them cut out your tonsils just so you can have ice cream?
Well, it depends on what kind of ice cream we're talking about here. Okay, not really. But people survive just fine without tonsils, right?
Studies now show that in some cases, removing your tonsils can be worse in the long run, and especially for young children.
Palatine tonsils are still sometimes called vestigial, but even back when that was way more common and they were removed way too often, that never meant that they were completely useless. They do play an obvious role in our immune system, but they can also get infected quite easily and sometimes even impact your breathing, especially while sleeping, so they are still sometimes removed. But that doesn't mean that you would then just be without tonsils. You still have several other tonsils, like your pharyngeal tonsil, your lingual tonsil, and your tubal tonsils, all of which do the same job with less issues. By the way, your tonsils are all part of your lymphatic system. They're basically giant lymph nodes. That's not really important here. I just want to make sure there's at least something educational going on in this video. At least this video is sponsored by Brilliant. Oh yeah, this video is sponsored by Brilliant. Do you feel it? That itch deep in your brain. That insatiable hunger to know more, to be more. It's like there's knowledge out there. Knowledge that you want, knowledge you were meant to have, but you just can't have it. That's why you need Brilliant. Brilliant's an interactive learning app designed to make you smarter, maybe even just a little bit too smart. But it isn't just a tool. No, it's a gateway. A shimmering portal into an infinite labyrinth of knowledge, thousands of lessons in math, science, programming, and they're all just waiting there, waiting for you. Because Brilliant's hands-on and engaging lessons, they don't just let you learn. They'll make you learn. And right now, Brilliant is offering you the chance, the gift of full access to their entire platform, absolutely free, for a full 30 days, and 20% off an annual subscription to their premium service. And all you got to do to get it is just click the link in the description, or scan the QR code on the screen, or just go to brilliant.org/Forrest Valkai. You think you know the world? You think you know its secrets? Not yet, but you could. You want to crack the secrets of artificial intelligence? You want to wield the power of data analysis? With Brilliant, you will know. So click the link and download the app and try their scientific thinking course. The course that lets you peer beyond the veil of this realm and see the inner machinations of the very cosmos. Why? Because it's not just about some light learning for you. It's about understanding the very fabric of reality. Some people aren't ready for that, but you are.
So what's their purpose?
Tonsils are placed at the back of the throat so they trap germs when we breathe. Proteins called antibodies produced by immune cells in the tonsils help kill germs and prevent throat and lung infections. They actually manufacture antibodies against disease. They're basically the first line of defense against inhaled or ingested viruses.
That's all pretty true, and it's no secret that that procedure was way overused a few decades ago, and there wasn't as much evidence as we thought there was for it being helpful, and so now it's been significantly dialed back. But this has very little to do with evolution. This is just the way that medical science has always progressed. It's the same reason why you can't buy heroin and cocaine over the counter anymore.
So what about the appendix? It's thought to be vestigial, right?
Not anymore. In fact, the story of the vermiform appendix is very similar to that of the palatine tonsils. We used to think these structures were vestigial, and then we found new evidence, and so we changed our minds. This is just how integrity works. If you'd like to know more about all that and why it isn't nearly as big of a deal as creationists like to pretend, you can check out this video where Answers in Genesis makes this same argument, only somehow worse.
It's thought to be vestigial, right? I'm not even sure I know what it is.
It's a tube-shaped sac attached to the lower end of the large intestine. It's part of your digestive system, and
Okay, enough said. But they also have purpose?
I know this is scripted, but what John just did is why creationists never learn anything. He was being given detailed information, stopped that noise, and focused in on exactly what he wanted to hear so he could draw the conclusion that he wanted to draw. Classic creationist move.
Yes, it's the storehouse for beneficial bacteria. When you fight an intestinal disease, your body gets rid of bacteria, both good and bad. But then the appendix can quickly resupply your system with good bacteria.
Sounds pretty helpful.
Yep. It also plays a role in our body's immune system, especially when we're younger.
Sounds pretty important.
When we hear creationists talking about vestigial structures, I find that it's often as important, if not sometimes even more important, to notice the things that they don't talk about as much as the things that they do talk about. There are plenty of vestigial structures which do not have some hidden underlying survival purpose, like the erector pili muscles that give you goosebumps, or the auricular muscles that allow you to wiggle your ears, or the palmaris longus muscle, which 14% of people don't even have. They never mention any of those, but they're sure to mention all the vestigial structures that we've learned more about and changed our minds on over the years, as if changing your mind makes you a bad intellectual. And they're also always sure to take this arrogant stance as if all these stupid scientists just couldn't see the very clear immunological and microbiological functions of these organs hundreds of years before they were able to study such things. Also, while ignoring the major role that evolution plays in those immunological and microbiological functions, and also all while benefiting from modern medicine, which is also heavily reliant on our understanding of evolution.
Charles Darwin thought vestigial structures were a winning argument for evolution.
And he believed there were lots of vestigial structures?
Yeah, and a German anatomist by the name of Robert Wiedersheim made a list of 86 vestigial structures in the human body. And later, evolutionists expanded the list to about 180. But modern science has now shown that every one of them has a purpose.
Yeah, and Isaac Newton drank mercury, dude. Be sure to let me know when you're ready to start throwing out physics the way that you're currently throwing out biology. Vestigial structures, as your book says, are not necessarily completely useless. They just have a significant reduction in function. So scientists who were working very early on in the development of this field of study saw some organs that they didn't understand the function of and labeled them vestigial, only to change their minds later when new evidence came along, and it is nowhere near unique to vestigial structures. We used to label hippos and elephants as pachyderms. Then we learned more about them and we changed their labels. We used to think that planets moved in perfect circles. Then we learned more about them and developed Kepler's laws. We used to think that flies spontaneously generated from raw meat. Then we did some new experiments and developed the law of biogenesis. And the same thing happened every time we thought something was vestigial and then found new evidence and changed the labels. But that isn't a good reason to change the labels now in hopes that we will find evidence later. I swear this entire video is just John and Jane discovering the concept of honesty and not knowing how to handle it.
So they didn't know about these organs' functions in the body?
No, they assumed that since people could survive without them, that these were totally useless. Then they reasoned in a circle, arguing that since they were useless leftovers of an evolutionary past, they demonstrate our evolutionary past.
And now we're back to just outright lies. Vestigial structures can be tied back to evolution by looking at their homologous relationship to other species within the same clade. And we can test that homologous relationship by looking at fossil records, if these are things that can fossilize, by looking at genetics, or by looking at developmental pathways. That's why your textbook talks about vestigial structures after this paragraph on homologous structures and starts the paragraph on vestigial structures with the sentence, "Not all homologous structures have important functions." This evidence is not a circle, it's a spider web.
So reasoning in a circle is bad.
I like to think that that was actually the first time that John had ever considered that concept.
Yeah, it's when we assume our conclusion, then use that assumption to prove our conclusion. It's crazy.
Jane, you are gonna freak out when you realize how you justify belief in the Bible.
So what do modern evolutionists say about these organs, now that science has discovered that every one of them have functions after all?
Did you catch that? We never said that all vestigial structures have a function. They said that all vestigial structures on that one random list had a function. But because that list was written by the evolutionists, they are now blanketly applying that narrative to literally all vestigial structures ever and hoping that you didn't notice. They're sneaky. They're sneaky little guys.
They now claim that vestigial organs can have functions, after all. And those functions may have evolved after the organ spent time being useless.
Wow, talk about imagination.
It's not imagination, it's called exaptation. That's the term for when a structure evolves a new function that's different than its original function. Also, do you ever think about how if we had said that these structures evolved from scratch, John and Jane would have said that's impossible? But when we say that these structures were already there and just developed a new function, they say that it's imagination. There's no reasoning here. They're just AI chatbots that are told to disagree with evolution no matter what. And we know that's true because in their videos, they've advocated for the idea of exaptation in order to deny evolution. They have supported the concept of a structure changing form and function through their diluted version of natural selection. if you describe even the most extraordinary parts of evolution and just call it God's perfect design to allow different kinds to adapt and survive, creationists will believe you. But if you talk about even the most undeniable parts of evolution and call it evolution, they will jump through hoops to tell you why it isn't real.
It's kind of sad that they think we're made up of useless parts.
Well, that's just a terrible straw man. Having certain parts of our bodies with a reduced function isn't the same thing as being completely made up of useless.
Instead of acknowledging the design by Jesus, the creator.
Wait, Jesus made us now? I'm sure there's some Trinitarian explanation for that, but just sweet Ghibli, man, it is difficult to keep up with.
It kind of reminds me of Psalm 139:14.
Yeah, it says, I will praise you for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well.
Of course, so wonderfully made that the Bible says that God regretted making us, which is why he sent the flood. Also, why fearfully? Why would you want your children to fear you? Unless that means that God was fearful when he made us, in which case, still why? Also, speaking of why did you read that way? And more importantly, just why any of this? Who wants to watch two filthy teenagers misunderstand biology while standing inside the background of a PowerPoint about poor life choices? What are we actually doing here?
God has a purpose for everything, even if we aren't sure of what it is.
Evolution has a purpose for everything, even if we don't understand it yet. Do you believe it now? Or is that just an empty, meaningless, nothing statement that anybody can say about anything in order to post hoc rationalize whatever they like? In science, we follow the evidence, no matter where it leads, and we're always willing to change our minds when we need to. So a statement like everything has a purpose means nothing. And if we were to try to use it the way that John and Jane are right now, you best believe they'd be the first ones to call us out for it.
I guess that could be true of my leftover box of parts, huh?
Yeah. By the way, this is the air cleaner that filters air going to the engine, the EGR valve regulates exhaust, and the EVAP canister prevents gas from leaking into the atmosphere.
Whoa, you know about all this stuff?
My dad's a mechanic.
Okay, well, can you show me where they go?
Sure.
Hold on, John's gonna let a woman teach him something? Maybe miracles are real.
All right, one last thought. The fact that evolutionists can't find any useless organs really destroys the idea that we're made up of spare parts.
Yeah. Kind of makes you think, doesn't it?
No, Jane, shoehorning in another reiteration of your terrible straw man argument that you yourself debunked does not make me think. It just makes me sad. Overall, I give this video a science teacher challenge level 1 out of 10. There was exactly one argument in this entire video, and they started the video by discrediting it with their own textbook. Looking back, I think the most frustrating thing for me was the whole gimmick about the box of spare car parts, which they tried to use to build the analogy that we all believe that we're just made of spare parts, when really the analogy was just like their creationist view of biology. It's a collection of random pieces that they don't understand and don't question. This was a pretty short episode, but I'm working on some big projects this month, so it fit right in. Make sure to sign up right now if you want to go to Borneo with me to explore biology in the wild, or if you want to go to Germany to get away from the US for Thanksgiving. I'll leave a link to both of those trips down in the description. And with that, I'm Forrest Valkai. Thank you so much for watching, liking, commenting, subscribing, and all the other stuff we do here on YouTube. Please exit through the gift shop, pick up one of these sweet t-shirts. Have an awesome rest of your day, and never stop learning. Bye-bye.
Kind of makes you think, doesn't it?